everybody. We've got today Scotland's finest, perhaps one of Scotland's finest for sure, with over 6.5 millions in Hendon Mob and a Triple Crown, winning one EPT, one WPT, and one WSOP, as well as everyone's favorite Ginger. He's got a bunch of stories for us, and is apparently a bit of a comedian. Turns out, Niall Farrell. How's being Scottish and being in Scotland?
It's great. Being Scottish is tremendous. You know, it fills you with a nice, warm sense of superiority over everyone else.
Well, what is it about the being Scottish that gives you a nice, warm feeling of superiority over everyone? I feel like this should be investigated.
Oh, you mean apart from like the obvious genetic advantages, but you mean like the other stuff? Generally, I mean, if you've seen the documentary movie Braveheart, you'll have seen the 100% true to life recapturing by the very talented Mel Gibson. I think that would explain it quite succinctly. You know, we're just a very, I believe the term is warrior poets. So you can
Warrior
take
poets.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely not some kind of defensive reaction we have to some deep-seated inferiority complex. Not at all.
You kind of live up to that name, I guess you could say. I mean, you've got all the comedy antics that pretty much everyone lacks, and I mean, I guess playing poker is sort of like being an intellectual warrior of sorts.
Yeah, I guess we could loosely get it into it. It's like a noble pursuit. Plus, when you're Scottish and you play a lot in the UK, you are mostly against English people, so you've got that. So
Yeah, that is a fair point. Yeah, it seems like I read you have that there's like some kind of um, a dynamic between the United Kingdom and England, I should say, and Scotland, because I heard in one of your interviews like a lot of the reasons most of the Scottish may be bitter is basically because of England, and England just basically screws over Scotland like in every single well, not I don't know about every way, but like a lot of ways.
yeah, that's possible. That interview was before any of my media training, but yeah, no, I think that was young, fiery, political Firaldo, who's now mellowing in his old age. But no, there's a lot of fun cultural and political stuff. I think when you have a near neighbour, especially one that was as powerful as England, there's you get some fun chips on your shoulder and stuff like that. But I'm a more modern man now. And I'm getting old, so the fire's died down a bit.
Now England is a powerful nation, I guess, instead of just an over aggressive, greedy, whatever. But
Yeah,
it,
I did a little bit more into reading into it as well because we get the Scottish version, but turns out we done a lot of bad shit too. So we need to we were quite a big part of the British Empire, so we need to quieten down a little bit.
it's always funny how things work out. But yeah, all of this is tongue in cheek. I mean, I will say that in my fair share of time in England, I have had a lot of bad things happen to me. So, but I don't blame them on that. I just blame them on like variants of life. Like I've been robbed. I've had my heart broken there.
Oh
Uh,
wow,
and what
God.
else has happened? I've had like a massive downswing. Uh, but I'll
Does that
still,
not give you negative connotations now towards England, or are you above that kind of emotional response?
I don't take it personally, Stuff. Stuff
Because
happens.
I'd be like, that place, man. Like, I mean, I went to France once when I was 18. And I got arrested and flew home the same day. And since then, I'm like, France. I'm never going back. And that was like 15 years ago, you know.
Oh, I mean, it gives me a little bit of. I mean, it makes me slightly anxious, I guess you could say. But I did have something like that happen too. I was denied entry once in England as well.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
I didn't get arrested though, but he reminded me of that as well.
Yeah.
I'll go back. It's still got positive sides, powerful nation, and
It's
I
always
guess
even
fish and
funny as
chips.
well when, like, you know, a country that's invaded every other country on the planet won't let you in. But we, you know, we won't get into that.
So even your career path is kind of funny. It's like you go from school soccer, school teacher, salesman, and then next law degree is kind of random too, and then poker. It's
Yeah, I don't know where you got school teacher. I wasn't a school teacher. I did some like work experience there when I was very young. It's like that was what I was going to be was a teacher, and then I realized I fucking hate kids. No, I'm sure. Nah, that's not true when my son watches this. But yeah, no, I did. I went to. I found poker at university when I was doing law, and I wanted to stop, and my mum convinced me to finish it, so I did. But I've never touched it since. I would be genuinely worse than untrained at this point. So it's. But yeah, I've done a lot of weird shit over the years.
any the weird shit that any that I'm missing besides some of the stories, the drunken stories.
Oh, I mean, there's a few of those. Again, getting older now, so they are dying down a bit. But yeah, we've had you know, there's a few. I mean, I'm sure we can get into. I don't want to drop too many people in anything, but there's been some, you know, some daft stuff. Like, I think it's kind of when you grow up in Scotland, especially where I kind of grew up. There's not you don't really see a lot of super like where I was. It's not very. I was like lower middle class, like working class. So we didn't see a lot of money, and then you give like a 22-year-old Scottish guy a lot of money in his eyes, and you do some really dumb shit with it when you first get it, you know. But it was fun, you know.
Do you want to talk about it? I read one particular story.
All right, what story? What which one did you hear before I put my foot in it?
Well, as far as the money is concerned, it's you're on well, you're on Elky's thing where it's the sickest poker story, I think it was what it was, and you got drunk on this like 250K deep stack, and apparently blacked out and got eighth place. Is all
Yeah,
this coming back to you?
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, coming back to me after it was told to me the day after. Yeah. So for some weird reason, when I go to Vegas, I really like for some record. I like basically I go to work, so I go to play the World Series, which is semi-professional work, like you know, go and play. But then when I bust out tournaments, I like to play the deep stacks recreationally, which usually involves, you know, you pay $250, then I try and drink that amount of beer before I bust to make it worthwhile. And yeah, I am generally speaking, like by the end of the summer, when the floor people see me like approaching to buy it to like get a seat for the deep stack, they've had like all summer of me coming and drinking and playing these tournaments, and they just go, "Oh, for God's sake, not again." So I go and get my seat. Yeah, apparently I got eighth in one. I was at the final table with one of my friends, and well, basically what happened was I woke up the next day with not much recollection of what happened after about 10 p.m. And I wake up to a load of Facebook messages that's just saying, "Oh, it was nice playing with you. I hadn't seen you for a while. Unlucky in the final table, blah blah." And I've got no idea what this is referring to whatsoever. And on further investigation, it turns out that I got eighth place. Decided that I didn't want any of the money, just give it to the staff or whatever. I wouldn't even sign for it. Apparently, I was like, that, you keep it. I don't know, blah, and just left. And to be honest, I wonder if they would give me that back now. Anyway, and yeah, the only way I got I knew it had happened was because I had a big kind of list of like Facebook messages from it. That wasn't actually that long ago, to be honest. That was only maybe 2 or 3 years ago, maybe just before COVID actually. Um, but yeah, that's kind of I don't know. I have this kind of philosophy that like when I'm really enjoying poker the most is when I'm playing like 100K buy-in tournament or $100 buy-in tournament. Like everything in between is fucking tedious.
Really?
Like I don't know why. Like, but those two extremes are like when you really enjoy yourself. Um,
I
so it's
can
kind
see
of
that.
strange, but Yeah, that was a bit of a, a bit of a not a shameful incident, but it was okay. You know, it was quite funny looking back.
Well, that makes sense because the 100K is like for like an exciting amount of money, and for $100, you can have all the excitement you want, and it's not a big deal, and nothing really matters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it's just those two kind of buying levels for me. It's like where you get the friend like in the 100Ks, it's like people you've known for years and like interesting guys and stuff. So you just it's kind of more laid back, chilling out. And $100, it's more kind of chilled out as well. Whereas like a 5K main event's more of the like robot kind of stare everything kind of thing, and it's more and feels like more like work than the other two. You know.
Oh yeah, play all the grinders and the 5Ks. You're really serious and trying to win all the money. I guess is what happens. It sounds like that.
Yeah, like yeah, I guess I mean it makes sense. I guess because you have more people that are you are at work at that point, but just always find it quite funny. You know.
Yeah, I guess it does. Yeah. Oh, by the way, how much money are we talking about? Do you want to say how much this eighth place is? It was a $250 tournament, so that's like kind of
Oh
really.
yeah, 250. Yeah, I mean, God, it was like 2K or something. It wasn't it
Oh,
wasn't a lot of money. If it was any more, I'd have been fucking back in after it. No shame whatsoever. Like, please can I have that back? But no, it wasn't. I think it was like, yeah, it was maybe like a couple K or something. It wasn't. It might have been less even, to be honest. To be honest, like, I can't, if it was more than that, I would have like probably tried to get it back with no shame. But I think I found out by looking on my Hendon mob afterwards, like a week later, it came up and it wasn't like that much or anything. So I was like, yeah, whatever. That's okay. I can swallow that idiot tax to save my very small remaining bit of pride. You know.
I feel like all my idiot taxes have been in when I've been sober. I felt really stupid doing a lot of things. I've done like many things that just seemed like really stupid decisions, but not well. Sometimes were big money too. I mean, I've also thrown parties that cost more money than that. I mean, I don't know if you call that idiot tax or not, but even when I like,
That's an experience, right? You can write like that's not like I would say an idiot tax is like I go like just dumb shit like I go get a deposit box at the World Series and then I lose the key on the first day and it costs me $100. Like that's idiot. Like that's just money for completely nothing, for just pure idiocy. But I would say like a party's like that's how you see these like inspirational quotes on Instagram like make memories. A party's a memory. Well, might not be you might not remember it, but in general, like things like that are you're making memories. They're priceless. I've read.
yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, there's better ways to throw parties as well, as I've learned. I've had some things. In one of the parties, for example, I decided to make a very fancy party, and I ordered a bunch of caviar and sushi. And then at the end of the
Right.
night, there were a lot of people there too. It wasn't like, it was like a lot of sushi. And then at the end of the night, funnily enough, everyone or a bunch of people ordered like this food from like Marouche or like it might have been like straight up McDonald's or something, and I just watch all my caviar and sushi get thrown away, and I feel like the biggest idiot. I'm like trying to save the caviar. I'm like, no, don't throw this away. I paid like
Yeah.
500 pounds for this shit.
God, yeah. People just scraping caviar on their Big Macs and shit at the end of the night.
I didn't see any of that, but the,
Yeah, that would be pretty brutal. In fairness, yeah. I mean, stuff like that's like pretty funny though. But like, yeah, like I could see that, like being quite tilting at the time. But yeah.
what? Well, if you want to say, you don't have to say. But what would be your biggest idiot tax in poker, or outside of poker, if you want to say it? Is it what we just talked about, or is there something else?
Um, I've done a couple times. Like I've done the classic like drop chips on the casino floor and lose it a lot. So like you drop a 5K chip and stuff like that, where it's like you just literally it was in your pocket because you're an idiot. Your pocket was quite loose and you lose 5K for being an idiot. Stuff like that. Other stuff just like I wouldn't say idiot tax for other stuff really. Like I haven't really. I mean, I've done like all the classic poker player stuff, like stuck 20k in crypto and watched it go to 500,000, then watched it go back down again without ever touching it, like a fucking moron, you know, all that kind of stuff. Which I don't know if, like, is it still idiot tax if everyone you know was also an idiot? Like, does that still count?
Actually, you know what's funny is that there are some psychologists that determine or suggested that when people get into groups, people actually have the tendency of doing stupid things even more. There's probably some variation on that because there's definitely exceptions. There's plenty of people that have gone mad by themselves. But there is such a thing as like mass hysteria. If you look it up, there's all kinds of like ridiculous, fucking stupid things people have done, and people do stupid shit all the time. Even today, there's lots of, in my opinion, there's lots of stupid things people do.
there's definitely there's definitely a lot of stupid things going on. Yeah, they have like
Yeah,
kind of lemming effect as well, where if you see someone doing it, you're just like, yeah, I can do that. You follow it, and you just kind of all fall off the cliff, kind of thing.
well,
But
I'm like
yeah, I mean,
that guy.
I think, yeah, exactly, yeah. There is a kind of thing as well where I think if it's a group thing, you let your guard down a bit as well. So I remember they did this experiment where it was like they were just told to, like, I think it was something where they were told to push a button and it would hurt someone in the next room or something, and people wouldn't do it. But then once they seen like 4 or 5 people fake do it, they were just happy to do it because everyone else had done it, you know. And it was like a really weird psychological thing where you're kind of more in, you're like, don't know if it's something to do with the social nature of humans or whatever, but it's like you're more likely to follow once you've seen someone else do it. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of individual dumb shit as well. Like, don't get me wrong.
There's,
Um, yeah, so
there's all sorts of like cults, you know, that are beyond insane. Like there's, I remember actually I almost joined a cult, by the way, or at least
right.
I did unknowingly. It was called Dawn Yoga, no Dawn Yoga, DAHN, and they had me do like a number of crazy exercises. I was like, okay, it's yoga, like whatever. But it turns out it wasn't yoga, and the real, and I was actually pretty wise about this. The real tipping point for this was when, well, first of all, this guy goes to me and says, "Okay, okay, Dandonim, it's time for you to take advanced classes in Dan Yoga. I think you're ready." And he charged me one amount, and then I like talked with someone. He charged me like $10,000 or something, and then I meet someone and they're like, "Oh, actually, it's $100,000." And I'm like, "What? Like, why is it? Why did the price just jump massive?" And that's when I started Googling and I read about like this fucking dude who's like the inventor of Dawn Yoga, and he's got like sexual assaults, and he's like this God complex, and everyone's like holding their breath underwater as long as they can, and like gasping for breath, and like in these like weird cult retreats and all this shit. And I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know. And it's apparently not yoga, by the way. Dawn is not a version of yoga. And that's when, yeah, that's when it was out of it. So I did not join a cult. I got out of it because the guy wanted 100K for me. His logic being, oh, like, you know, you make this much money, and like, it's not how it
How did
works.
that work though? Was it like yoga to start with? Like they just had you in like in the yoga poses, and then they'd be like, "By the
Well,
way, we need 100 grand," or
the
like,
first thing they
how
had me
does it
do
work?
was this pose that you hold as long as you can. You hold basically your legs up in the air. I don't know if you've ever done that for 30 minutes, but like the first time I did it for 12 minutes, and if I held it for 15, he would have given me $100. Uh, it got easier. It was very painful, and then I had to hold this pose for a very long time too. I mean, there's maybe something good about it. Like I think basically that many of these cults have something good in them, but yeah, like that wasn't really the warring side. Like I thought, oh, it's yoga, you know, it's yoga. Um,
Yoga, but they give you $100 every now and then.
yeah. Uh, I mean, he's very compelling. He's very charismatic. I'll tell you that. He
I
reminded me
think,
of
yeah, to be a good cult leader, you have to be quite charismatic, right? Like no one wants to follow a fucking wooden cult leader. You want to follow the guy that's going to take you up Hollywood Hills and all all that kind of stuff, you know?
yeah. Well, you want to. I mean, they need to truly believe what they think. Like that's one of the basis of this kind of charisma, I think. But I think this goes back to why people follow so much is because I mean, this is what I think. It's just basically no one knows the what's going on, right? Like whatever. Who knows what this button does? This button, If everyone else is pushing it, it can't be that bad. It's like kind of good logic. Like, what is going on? So, I mean, I think that's the reason why all this mass hysteria happened because no one really knows, and you
Yeah,
know,
I could see that. One thing I've noticed as I kind of slowly, and if I say so myself, gracefully grow older, is that that's true. There's like I think there's maybe three people on the planet that have any idea about what they're doing and what's going on, and I haven't met any of them yet. And it's just that everywhere you go, it's just like a massive room of people going, I don't know, like with every single industry, arts, everything. It's just everyone's just like, I mean, I just had it's a kind of mundane story, but my fucking roof started leaking like 4 months ago, and I was just phoning every company trying to go like, I would like to give you money to fix my roof. And it took me 4 months of people going, yeah, we'll come and have a look at it. And then they'd look at it, and then they'd do something. And I was like, okay, did I give you money now? They're like, no, see how it goes. And it would start leaking again. Then I would phone them off. They would be busy. 4 months it took. And like, eventually someone came, and then I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, yeah, yeah, it's going to take maybe 2 days, and it'll cost like 1,000. I'm like, okay. And then they fixed it. I gave them the money. I'm like, that's what I mean. That took me 4 months. I'm like, it's just a little thing. And everything I'm trying to deal with, I'm doing some fun stuff with tax shit now, which I've been managed to avoid for many years by living in Scotland and being just a poker player. But with GG sponsorship deal now, I have to do taxes and like just trying to. Took me ages. I'd eventually get a proper accountant or whatever, but just trying to speak to anyone, no idea. No one has any idea. It's just the whole world's just full of people that I don't know, and some of us are just more vocal about it than others, I think.
I guess you could say that. I would say that you probably know a thing or two about poker. You seem to have had some success at it, and
Yeah, I guess
you're
poker,
a
like,
poker
yeah, I
pro.
know a little bit about that, I can guess, yeah. Just other stuff to be a functioning adult, not so great. But cards, I can, I can do some card stuff. That's not bad.
I read that you didn't have to try that hard to win at poker. Is that true? Is there something you attribute your success to?
Um, it's true to an extent, I would say, yeah. I'm quite lucky in that with everything that I've done, especially like academically and stuff. It's a classic like small town top of the class kid. He's like, I was always like kind of top of class, and it was always everything came quite easy to me. But then as you venture out into bigger and bigger fields, being the smartest person in a 30-person class, and now the class is 100,000 poker players. You don't, there's guys there that are more naturally intelligent than you and are working harder, which is a tough combination to beat. Um, but like at the start, I mean, I've always ever played tournaments, and when I started, it was 2009 ish, 2008, 2009, probably 2000. I started playing 2009, maybe professional 2010 and 11, and back then it was just poker was just a kind of semi, especially tournaments, was just a game of intuition and small logic problems. There wasn't, it wasn't widespread use of solvers. There wasn't anything like that. It was all mostly it was understanding some like math, but mostly human behavior, like how people like when I talk to like the this generation of kids, the solver kids that are coming through, like 18, 19 year old, they just like blows their mind. Like some terms, like we used to have this is the one that always gets me, and I remember talking about it. Was we used to have a term in tournament poker in 2010, and we just open like we'd always spot picks of like, right, with how the table's going, blah, blah, I'm going to open Jack 5 offsuit under the gun here, and I'm opening to 4. And it's like, you're doing what? It's like, well, I know this guy's going to 3-bet me, so I'm opening this hand to 4-bet him when it happens. And then when it does it, like the guy would 3-bet you, and you're like, I've opened to 4, so here comes the 4-bet. And that was just poker. It was just fucking nonsense, like just constant like battling with that. And part of me misses that because I was really good at that. But but it was obviously a very unrefined time. It was more kind of the Wild West kind of times where it was just anything kind of goes, and people didn't really understand the actual mechanics of the game to the extent they do now. So that kind of moment, I was quite lucky because it did just come kind of naturally. But like without being full modest, the stuff that came naturally wasn't of a particularly high level. The competition wasn't amazingly tough. So it's not.
Yeah,
You
but
weren't
it's like
fucking you weren't doing something particularly complicated, but but generally, yeah. But it does come with a detriment as well, where it does hurt your work ethic a lot. Like I I'm really forcing myself to work harder now, especially because I just took like a 2 year break essentially, and you just can't really get away with it now. Like you can't just show up anymore. So it's kind of and it's tough trying to instill a work ethic that you've not had your whole life. It's like trying to force it at this late stage, but we're getting there.
Yeah, it's like one of those. I've read. I mean, for one thing, I totally agree that now you cannot just slack it and win. I mean, you if you find the right opportunities, maybe, but you can. If you're playing in competitive environments, you have to work at it, no matter how smart you are. And I mean, like even so, there's still like quite a bit of what's the word? Credit to be due if you do manage to win when everyone doesn't really know what's going on. That means like you knew was going on relatively. Relatively, you were the guy that knew what was going on.
Yeah, I
So
guess so. Yeah, like yeah, when you kind of yeah, when everyone was 2 out of 10 at the game, you were 4 out of 10, and that was enough to be king at that point. You know.
it's enough, yeah. But it's
Yeah.
all relative, right? It doesn't really like it doesn't matter if you like were like could have been way better. Really, like why does it matter? Um, it's a hard thing for me to wrap my head around, but that is the truth. Sometimes it messes with my head. My sense of perfection messes with me. But I think it's all really relative at the end of the day. Um, it's like it doesn't matter to be extraordinary according to some abstract metric. Well, maybe it does. I'll think about that one more. Oh, I remember reading that it's a funny dynamic that happens is when you have so much innate talent or even intelligence, you can funny thing can happen, especially to kids in school. The kids that often had so much intelligence at some point fall behind when things get too difficult because they haven't built up that work ethic, which I guess is like this funny like duality of like having like I've read this about like really what's the word I want to say um, prodigious. I don't know if that's the right word, but really like super intelligent kids. Maybe you fell a little bit in that category where you had this very high intelligence, and then um, at some point you need.
Possibly. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I was like super, super, super high intelligence. I think with poker, I think I had a relative high like EQ. Like I could understand basically from just simple things like understanding how certain circumstances or certain boards and stuff are like doing certain things made me feel, and I was able to extrapolate it onto other people's tendencies a lot more. So I was able to understand what to make like really big, because obviously tournament poker at that time was just who exploits the most, and which a lot of poker still is, but back then it was just purely that almost. And like I had a really good understanding of what even like good players where they would veer
Hmm.
off wildly. And I don't know if that's I think that's maybe just a very lucky natural thing where you can kind of get that, but it was really obviously very handy when at
Yeah.
the time when the poker was just all that stuff. For sure, the stuff you said though about the workout stuff's true, and there's another small side effect I think as well that I've kind of read about, which is with that kind of if you have kind of quite a decent innate talent, you it does give you a bit of an ego, but also it stops you trying a lot of new things because you just assume you'd be really good at them, and then you have this kind of subconscious fear of failure. So you don't want to do it in case, oh, maybe I'm not this fucking talented person that, natural talent that. So you don't want to have the chance to prove yourself wrong. So you kind of struggle with. I think it was actually Phil Galfond that wrote about this kind of thing, where he said he had this kind of. I think it was a time when he stopped he had this kind of break in his competition where he didn't play the super high stakes anymore. And but I think it was before the Galfond challenge or whatever. And he had this kind of thing where he said it's like when you assume like you don't want to prove yourself wrong that you couldn't be up there or anymore or whatever stuff like that, and you have to really push yourself to go over it. But I thought it was quite interesting.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, I guess I could see like kind of weird psychological fears turning up. I've had a few of those I guess you could say complexes. That one I did not have personally, but I guess I could see something like that happening. I've had other ones of sorts. One of the weird downsides of having some kind of talent.
I don't know, it's such a niche one as well, you know what I mean? It's like you just forget like it's poker's such a weird world as well. Like I'm just back from I did some there was a live tournament thing down in Nottingham the GG ran, so I was down that. And you go in and like your posters on the wall, and it's like everyone's like, "Oh, you guy with the poster, blah blah blah," and you're like super like well known and famous in this 0.0000001% of the world that no one else really knows about. Like, as soon as you walk out that building, no one fucking gives a shit who you are, what you did, anything like that. And it's just a really strange, like, a very strange niche to be in. You know, it's like I remember when I was younger, I used to always say it was like I've managed to like because obviously when you're like young, single, stuff like that, you know, having status or having been well known is a very big thing if you're trying to, you know, go out and speak to ladies, all that kind of thing. And we used to always joke it was like, yeah, we've picked one of the industries in the world where the demographic is middle-aged men almost exclusively that know who you are. It's absolutely worthless everywhere else. It's so true as well, though. It's like, oh yeah, it's like I had a couple of folk ask me for photos today and stuff. Oh, did you? Yeah, who was it? It was like, yeah, it was Bob from Arkansas. It was, you know, it's all these guys like completely exclusively, which is pretty funny.
So have you not met? I heard you're pretty good with the ladies. I heard you get all the girls. And I mean, I'm sure like has there never been like a girl from poker that's like come up and talk to you, that kind of
No,
thing.
I'm happily coupled, pretty basically married. I have
Oh yeah,
my
yeah.
girlfriend Edita. I met I actually met through poker. She was working with the Party Poker Bahamas tournament on registrations, and I actually had to re-enter the 10K 3 times, so it was kind of an easy way to go in. I'm like, oh, it's like I've spent $40,000 just so I can come over and talk to you, you know, like. And she I actually remember she got she's great, like she's fantastic, and she's a great mom, and she's so perfect for me. She puts up with all my shit, which is really important. But I remember the moment that I realized that this is the girl that was for me was I was behind Steve O'Dwyer in the line, and Steve was registering for the 25K for the sixth bullet. And upon registering, and she meant this so earnestly, and it wasn't a needle at all, but it was so perfect because it wasn't a needle. She just looks at him and goes, "Six time lucky, Steve," and gives him his gives him his ticket and sends him off to the table. I just thought that was so perfect. But you meet a lot, you know, with the poker stuff. You know, it's especially on the live tournament tour. You'll probably know this yourself that the players and like a lot of my good friends now are people I met that work on the tour, like TDs, dealers, all this kind of stuff. But especially dealers tend to be this kind of young, adventurous demographic. You know, like the girls and the guys both. And you do get this kind of holiday camp feel to each stop at that kind of point. And there's obviously, you know, if you're mid 20s, it's a room full of mid 20s girls and guys. There's obviously going to be a lot of liaisons, so to speak, especially because you're already grouped by having similar interests already. You know, like traveling and all this kind of stuff. So you're basically on a holiday camp with people that are like-minded already. So it's very common that you get a lot. I mean, you'll find in poker, like if most of my friends have girlfriends that are from poker one side or another, either playing or the massage staff or the dealing staff or TD staff and stuff. And it's just a kind of a really organic thing, I think, to be honest, because it's just, you know, it's a lot of people with the same interests and you go to the same places, and it can be quite hard to have a relationship outside of poker with all the traveling and stuff, you know?
Yeah, I mean it is. There's a number of oddities that exist within poker that may be difficult for the normal person to understand, but since people are already in it, perhaps they can. It's more understandable for like them, and especially for women, where you know they tend to be a bit more. What's the word? Um,
Careful now.
Yeah, careful. I think
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've had girlfriends outside of poker during poker, and it's tough with all the traveling and stuff. But like with Edita, my girlfriend now, we had a period where all we did was she was freelance, so she was just traveling to work all the stops. So I just went to all the stops, and it was basically like we were on holiday for a year together. You know, it was great. Whereas you can't really get that if someone has like a real job or whatever in the real world, you know, outside of the poker bubble. Um, so it can be quite stressful. But I really want to know where you're getting your info on this as well, because I feel like someone's dropping me in this as well outside.
dropping you in this.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I hear you're quite good with the ladies. I'm like, I don't know if the ladies would say that, but
Oh, it was from your interview with interview with between you and another Scottish player.
oh, Ludo, yeah. But that's a relative interview against Ludo. I mean, God,
Oh,
I think
she's bad. Is that what you're saying?
Ludo is the worst with women in the world. He's a good-looking guy, and he's very affable, and he's very funny and intelligent, good at what he does. But he just melts in the face of a woman. So it was a very relative term for sure.
Ah, yeah, okay. Well, I don't know what to say. That's I don't
I'm
know what to
burying my
say
track
to
here.
that. One funny thing about poker is though it appears to be like a bit of a not a bit of a strange job. It ironically has many positive sides to it that I would think a lot of people would appreciate. It's one of these things where everyone does, the other thing does the thing that everyone tells them to do, but then when an actually good opportunity comes along, people don't take it because they generally rely on what other people do versus their own discretion. Um, and if you think about it, well, I mean, poker, I will say it's a difficult one just because it's really hard to assess how likely you will actually succeed and to what extent you will succeed, but you will get to travel 100%. I mean, I think it depends on the person, but it can be a pretty good career path for if someone's good enough at games and if they just happen to have a passion for it and really good enough. Like it is a pretty good life in comparison to a lot of 9 to 5s, from what I understand. I was actually curious to take a 9 to 5 just to remind myself what it's like to be like but I'm
Yeah,
just that kind of guy. And yeah, I mean, it just attracts a lot of black sheep. Is what I think.
oh, absolutely, for sure. And that's why I think it's like, I don't think it's like anything else in the world because I don't think you could meet the characters that are in this game in any other walk of life, really. You know, like maybe in like other gambling things, but not like there's just there's so many things I've noticed that are like insanely like funny to me that we all kind of follow the same thing. Like the big one in the UK is where you don't get fed a driver's license immediately is hardly any of the UK pros can drive, and it's all the same thing. I don't know why it is. I think it's mostly laziness, and it is that kind of thing. But it's just a very like that kind of thing is really kind of strange. But there's also like a lot of the same interests and stuff. Like it is a very kind of defined. Although there's obviously outliers and stuff in different people, there is a lot of kind of. It's not for everyone, but the people that do get into it tend to be very interesting one way or another. You know. The eccentricities are very interesting to me. You know.
I found that to be kind of true. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are obsessed with poker and that's their own thing. Um, I mean, well, why don't you tell us a bit more about your interests? I know that you're very interested into football, is what I've read, or soccer.
Yeah, yeah. I love my football. Used to play to a good level, which always blows everyone's mind because before poker, let's think to put it before poker, I was in shape, and I don't think I've been in any good shape at all in my entire poker career. So it's always fun trying to. We've had some fun prop bets over the years, like trying to run, like having races in hotel corridors and stuff like that, where like 4 a.m. in the middle of I think we were at Thunder Valley in California, and you've got all the American jocks, and in my head I can still run fast, but my body's very much disagreeing. So we've got all these like kind of races going up and down the corridor. I remember getting it was actually Ludo again. I was telling him I could even now I could still beat him in a race. We'll do a race around the hotel,
Sounds like
and
a
he's like,
bet.
I'm like, yeah. So we get up here. We've got God, it was such a weird crew as well. I think it was me, Ludo. I think it was Reiner, Kempe, Kyle, Julius. Just a very eclectic ragtag bunch that had ended up at this WPT stop. And I think I bet Ludo $500 that I could beat him in a race. We ran down and we go all the way around the grounds, so it was like a 2 mile race, and then back up to the hotel room. And we get down like on our hand, like like the racing start like that, and we go 3, 2, 1, and I stand up and he just sprints off, and the rest of the guys are just kind of looking at me, and then I just get $500 out and give it to Kate Jules and give that to Ludo when he gets back and go in my room. So I just sent him off on this 2 mile run around the casino for no reason. But yeah, it's like the football stuff I love. Like Scotland's a very big football country, and it's very fanatical. So you'll find me a lot of the times like I've done. I mean, you're talking about like idiot tax and stuff. I've done some incredibly dumb shit, like especially when you're in the middle of a big heater where you think money's just gonna constantly replenish. You're like, well, it's gonna obviously I'm just gonna keep winning every day for the rest of my life. So why should I save any money? So I'd like register it. I remember playing a 2K side in Prague, and then I realised I wanted to watch a football game, so I just kept going all in to build up a big stack, and then just left the stack for the day and went and watched the football, and came back to like 6 big blinds on day two,
Oh,
and
wow.
busted or what, just dumb shit like that. But when you're young and it's like really funny at the time, but looking back, you're like that's probably pretty stupid. But no, it's a big, big thing. I'm really into my football. I always you'll find me if I have to play poker during a big game, I'll be on my phone watching it and stuff like that. It's very very important cultural aspect of Scotland.
Football. Okay, it's good to know. I didn't know. I guess I knew in the UK it was a good, big cultural thing. Put on a football game.
Oh,
That'll be my strategies. We'll be like, oh guys, you guys pay attention to the football if I'm in Scotland.
yeah, exactly. When there's a big game on, it was there was a big game on in down at when I was down at the GG UK festival a couple of weeks ago. So it's a 500 main, so it's like it's fun to play stuff, but it's like I could really do with being a bit able to watch this football game. So the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm like I'm going to play properly and agree, but I'm also like I'm not going to be making any hero folds. I'm kind of hoping just to get a massive flip, so I can either have loads of chips or I can go see the game. And I got dealt queens and like 100 bigs deep, and my opponent like tighter guy squeezed me, and in my head I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna get to see the game. This is incredible, and it's not a punt because it's like it's technically okay to get queens in here, and I'm like loving it. And he had kings, and I'm like, oh no, and he's like loving it, and I'm like, oh, good game, man, good game. Right, off to the pub. Let's go see the game. you know, which is pretty handy. But yeah, it's a big culture thing. If there's a big game going on, you can target some of the UK guys for sure. They'll have their mind elsewhere.
It's such a funny thing. I mean, I guess I guess as an exploitative population exploit the
Yeah,
game.
exactly. You have country reads. This is a great country. Just check the football schedule. It's a great
Watch
country read.
games within the UK. Yeah, never done that one. But I have. Well, I don't really punt when I want to lose. I just like kind of hope that I get some cool or some bad beat and like play at least mostly serious.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the same. I don't have it in me to pure punt at all, even if it's like some daft tournament I'm in. But I have that. Like I remember playing Scoop in Vancouver, and I had a day two of but there was still it was like one of the lower buy-ins. So there was still like 300 people left or something,
Mhm.
and we went out to for a nice meal and we had a lot of drinks the night before. And then I realised that the day two was restarting at 7 a.m. because I late regged it the day before at like 10 when we woke up. So day two is restarting at 7 a.m. My alarm goes off. I'm hungover as shit at like 6:45 a.m. lying in my bed. I just get the laptop up and I'm like, I've got 28 big blinds in this day two, and I'm like, I know I won't punt it, but I'm like, in the first hand I get sevens in against ace king, and I'm just in it. I hit a king and I woke up my roommate celebrating that I was out, so I could go back to bed. I was like, yes. He's like, what the fuck was that? I'm like, oh, I lost that flip the very first hand. I can go back to bed now. And he's like, oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, it's always nice when you get out when you want to, or the game ends preferably when you want to. I want to
Absolutely.
ask about a couple other sort of events. Well, not I don't I guess they don't qualify as idiot taxes. Well, one is an idiot tax, but I have idiot tax. Yeah, idiot fun stuff. Fun stuff. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
well, one is you had a 15K watch and then lost it at a stripper's party. Is this what happened?
Yeah. So for like, I'd always wanted a nice watch, and for my first big score, I bought a Jacobs and Co, which was obviously classic, whatever. Got the Jakies on. It was that era. We were loving it. And I loved that watch as well. And yeah, I think it was in some horrific English town as well. It wasn't even like a Vegas stripper. It was like fucking Stoke or some like incredibly grey, horrible, nonsense English town. We ended up back at this, and it sounds like a strippers party. Like you're imagining like the strippers at the Rhino, like it's all glamorous and all this. This is like someone's one bedroom apartment with like a little speaker playing music and everyone far too drunk. Like it's the most depressing scene you've ever got in the world.
Yeah.
And I've somehow left without. I'm not ruling out that it was finessed off me, to be honest. But yeah, and but back then it was this was like when you were still the start of like the heater or whatever, and you felt like money fell on trees or whatever. So like instead of going back to look for it, I just couldn't go back to that place, hungover or sober. So I just wrote it off and just didn't even go and look for it or anything, and just I was like, well, that's a very expensive lesson to not go to a stripper's house in Stoke. And it's a lesson that to this day, I mean,
Good one.
yeah, I mean, that was maybe 8 years ago, so like, we'll call it 2K a year, well spent, I would say.
I've had sort of something similar happen, by the way. Except it was my own house. Uh,
Right, okay.
and was not a stripper as far as I'm aware, but we were having people over at my own house, and people were actually watching my watch, but they were caught a bit off guard, and I don't know, I just wasn't thinking about it that much for some reason. I can tell you one of the reasons why it was because apparently this this girl who liked me, uh, she's a bit of a strange girl, but she's like apparently connected to high society or something. But she said that she had this like very, she gave me as a present this blackboard, how do you say, blackjack table, and she was like trying to get me to play or not blackjack, backgammon. That's what it was, backgammon
Right.
table, and she was trying to get me to play backgammon with her. And But she said that this backgammon table was from this very famous person, one of the most famous, biggest black backgammon players in the world. That and the last one sold for like $500,000. And I'm like, holy
Wow.
shit! Like, I think I better put this thing away. And I'm just thinking about this blackjack backgammon table this entire time, and I didn't realize like I had a watch, but it was like it was a nice watch. It was like a Rolex or something that a friend gave me as a present, and I totally forgot about it. Right, I was just thinking of this the backgammon table that's worth £500,000, and I'm thinking, shit, I need to hide this thing in case someone steals it. So I like hid it like in this like somewhere really secretive in my room, and no one could find it. And then I like got a lockbox and put it in there. It's like, okay, this thing needs to get appraised, see how much it's actually worth. Turns out it's not worth any money at all, like maximum like 500 like pounds or something, or like whatever. I feel like massive idiot. I spent like more on the lockbox than on this actual thing. And this is when I was renting out a nice house and all that too. It was a bit bigger, and I was throwing parties in the UK. Um, this is how I got robbed, and so of course I forgot that I realized, wait, where's my watch? As I'm like trying to take this thing to this, as I'm bringing this thing back from the store, and now my watch is gone because I wasn't thinking about a watch at all. Stuck thinking about this. This stupid. Um,
This half million back at the table.
I don't think that girl stole it. I think someone else stole it, and I just wasn't paying attention at some point in time. But it was like,
Oh, was it like during a party, maybe an opportunistic moment or something?
yeah, I think we were just focused on other things, and then just one of my friends forgot to watch it and watch the watch, and that was it, basically. So that's
But I
how I
bet
lost.
you've never had it happen again, though.
Huh?
I bet that's only happened. I bet it's only happened once.
It's only happened once, yeah. Partly because I also
Yeah,
don't want to have a watch, and I don't want someone to steal it off me. I mean, it's a massive target sign. You're like walking down
yeah,
the street, and I like, and
for sure. Yeah, I've ever since that day for me, I said I would never buy myself. I don't. My rationale is I don't deserve a nice watch because I can't look after them. So now I don't. I won't get myself one anymore. I have to be punished for more time.
if you want to look at it that way, sure. I mean, it takes some looking after for sure. You have to make sure you're not wearing it with the wrong crowd. And I don't know. I don't really get it that much. Like I mean, it can be good investments as it turns out, but not if you know there's
Yeah,
a decent chance that they're
exactly. It's
stolen
one
or
of
you get robbed.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like you get again. I'm just gonna blame it. I'm disassociating all the dumb shit I did when I was younger as if it wasn't even me. So I'm like younger me is like, yeah, I was like, oh, it's a status symbol, blah blah. It's like so you wear it to show off like you have some money, and then you're surprised when someone fucking steals it. It's like that's the whole point was to attract attention, and you did. Well done. Someone fucking took it. So yeah, I can see. I just something that small and expensive is not something I should be trusting myself with. Put it with my person and my penchant for sometimes ending up places I shouldn't.
Uh, well, I was a bit careless myself. I mean, it's easy to be careless when you don't like get drunk and or do stupid things. Uh,
Exactly.
there's one more story that you've done that I kind of that it's I don't know if you could say it seemed kind of a clever sort of ruse of sorts or a
Okay.
very difficult thing to do. Required some finesse of sorts, I would say. Uh, do you remember the story of when you were in Montreal and you somehow spoke well, you spoke that you convinced someone that you're a reality TV star somehow and
Yeah, I do remember this. Yeah, this was God, this was a while back. There's some that trip had so many good stories. Actually, that was a great trip. Um, this all started with me and a buddy of mine, Danny, were sitting. We'd both busted the WPT. We couldn't get in anymore. We'd done the maximum bullets. So we're sat in the bar at the playground in Kanawaki having a few beers. And then we see Mike, the late great Mike Sexton, walks into the bar with like 5 Royal Flush girls. And we've had a few at this point. So Danny just goes, "Hey, Mike! Mike!" And Mike Sexton looks over and he just goes, "Hey, Mike, come and drink with us." And to his eternal credit, Mike just goes like this, looks at his watch and goes, "Yeah, all right," and just brings everyone over. So we end up drinking there for a few hours, and there's a couple girls at the bar, and obviously me being my well lubricated and overconfident self, I got and start talking to them, and essentially, so I did the classic. Again, I'm disassociating myself from this. This is like a long time ago. This is young daft Firaldo. But I go up and I said something along the lines of, "Hey, do you want some shots?" So we had some shots, and she's like, "Oh, I'm Kayla. Nice to meet you." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. It's nice to meet you." And she's like, "Oh, what's your name?" And I'm like, "Oh, you don't know who I am?" And she's like, "Should I?" And I was like, "Oh no, I just love it in Canada where I can just be myself. It's not like back home. I can just come out here, relax, and no one's really asking who I am and that. Just talking loads of shit. And she's like, "Oh, what do you mean?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I was on a reality TV show in Scotland, blah blah blah." So again, I'm just talking like I talk a lot of nonsense because I find it hilarious in a very immature way. And so we get talking, whatever, and we have a few drinks, blah blah blah, and then in a shocking turn of events, I black out. Wake up in the morning and I have this like massive Facebook message saying, "Oh, it's the." She turns out she was actually the singer from. She was playing her out, premiering her album or something, and she's like, "Oh, it's the singer from last night. it was really nice to meet you, so on and so forth. I actually host a radio show in Montreal, and we'd like to have you on as a celebrity guest for someone who's, we've not had any Scottish reality TV stars, and I'm like, oh my god. But obviously, I show all the friends I'm staying with, and they're like, well, you fucking have to do it now. Like, you can't not do it. So I ended up going on Montreal, and I did on Rock FM in Montreal, and I did a 90-minute interview as a reality TV star. And I thought, like, my friends heard it, they thought it was hilarious, and I thought I'd buried it, and my fucking brother found it and put it on my Facebook for all my friends back home to hear it, so now I've never heard the end of it. But it was a 90-minute interview of me having to explain. Yeah, it's like, yeah, no, it's tough. Like, you walk in the streets and people asking for pictures, wanting autographs and stuff. And part of me was like, there's no way you believe this. Like, it's no chance. Come on. But I guess, it went out like that. But it was, yeah, I still have the old Facebook DMs actually, because I have to show people with that story because, it sounds like a bullshit story. But, yeah, no, she's actually a really nice girl as well. Still have her on Facebook. She's married now, lives in the UK now, all this kind of stuff. But yeah, that was a good kind of anecdote of something that could happen if you went out for a few drinks with, 2015 Firaldo. That's the kind of dumb shit you could end up doing. It was kind of fun.
It sounds kind of fun. I've done smaller versions of that. I've made a whole backstory about Jungleman. I've never gone on like an interview and pretended to be a reality show or anything, or be a reality star. It takes, I mean, I would think for a whole 90 minutes to make up all that backstory would be tough. Like, did you not make up, like how you rose to fame? They must have asked you these questions. They must have asked you the kind of questions.
Yeah,
Are you,
I
are you
mean,
a real poker pro? Like, did you?
yeah, no. So I was trying to leave this bit out, but fuck it, I'll put it in. It was obviously I was hitting on her, so she asked me, "Oh, like, why are you so famous for this reality show?" And I said I was the first person to receive oral sex on live TV in the UK. And she's like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I know, yeah, yeah." But for the 90-minute interview, I kind of had to freestyle it, so I was just kind of I had a couple of beers before I went. I was kind of just playing it by ear, but yeah, that was. For some reason, though, like when you had a few drinks, your brain thinks that's hilarious, but then you have to deal with it the next day. But no, that was so I did. Yeah, it was 90 minutes. It was like because I thought as well. I thought it was just like 15 minutes or something. And then I'm getting grilled on this kind of celebrity culture and all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, it's terrible. I have fucking no idea. I'm like, yeah, yeah, sure, yeah, it's awful, yeah. But yeah, it was it's a good story, and it was like kind of funny. It's like the stuff you do when you've had a few drinks that you think's hilarious, and then looking back, it's like, okay, it was funny, but why do you put yourself in these spots? But yeah, stuff like that. I don't know. I just find it really funny. Like, see, when I'm playing like deep stacks and stuff, I used to just make up backstories and stuff. Like, oh, what do you do? I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm the world cheese rolling champion. Like, you're the what? It's like, that where you roll a wheel of cheese down a hill and you chase it. It's like a really obscure like English sport. I'm like, I'd tell people I was the world champion of that and shit like that, just for no reason either. Like almost like pathological like stuff. Just like I would never tell anyone anything truthful about me because I just thought it was funnier to make shit up. I don't know.
Well, it often is. Actually, that's the funny thing is in many in certain cultures of the world, it tends to be more of a positive thing because people have gotten so. I guess you could say have so many luxuries where they've got all their needs met, or they're like, what the fuck, you know what I mean? Especially in first world America. At least this is my psychoanalysis as a poker player. Is that when you talk to girls in first world America, it's a little bit different in other places, and it's just I mean, many people are essentially bored. They don't really have entertainment of some sorts, and yeah, I mean, it's like some kind of fun. Like, obviously, the cheese rolling champion thing is really unlikely to be true. Like an element of
That's
that
the
is a positive thing. It's good to be a little bit unpredictable in some ways, especially
absolutely.
especially when I mean, I think it's fun. It's harmless as long as it's harmless.
Yeah, no one's getting hurt, you know. And by the way, those are the best ones, the ones that are the least likely to be true, but they can't disprove. Because it's just that's the line you like. You want to just make it so almost 99% chance that this cannot be correct, but that 1%, you just if you can nail that 1%, it's just beautiful.
All right, I'll keep that in mind in case I make up any more backstories of where my nickname comes from. The current one, in case anyone has heard it, is that my parents were from went to Costa Rica, and I like legit was raised for the monkeys
In the
in
jungle.
Costa Rica. Yeah, and then like
See,
I
that's pretty good. See,
investigated.
that's like
Huh?
that's probably a 1%er. Like that's almost impossible, but it could be true. Like it's not. It's almost impossible, but it is not in itself impossible. It could have happened. It's just incredibly unlikely. So that's the sweet spot right there. I like that one.
Yeah, people actually believe it. By the way, they tend to believe it. They're like they're listening, and they seem like they're really into it. They seem like yeah, they seem like they can't. I don't know. They seem mostly like they believe it. I should say.
Seems plausible.
Yeah. I want to ask. There's all these crazy stories, and you've got your you've got your long poker history with many successes and many. Uh, Sounds like it's got many pivots of sorts. Somewhere in there you won an EPT. Well, you're the Triple Crown winner. I mean, that's quite a prestigious accomplishment. Only 1 in 9 people have done it, and 6.5 million winnings and earnings. That's nothing to what's the word? It's a good accomplishment.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. No, I've been pretty lucky with it. I think everyone has their own kind of little journey where they have little fortuitous moments, and a lot of mine. I mean, I guess by nature these wins tend to come to break a downswing because I guess the nature of poker is you're downswinging until you're not, you know. So that makes sense. But yeah, I was pretty lucky. I mean, the Triple Crown happened in a 2-year period, so I literally had like yeah, just 2 years where whenever I was deep in a tournament, I would just win, and it was I miss those days. Those were great. But it was sort of I remember like I think I was 8 of 9 at the WPT final table and won. I was 9 of 9 at the World Series and won. I was 2 of 6, and I think my EPT final table was probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest, final table that I've ever like that I think they've been on that tour. It was myself, Reiner Kempe, Sam Greenwood, Daniel Dvorez, um, other name Sikorchi. The rest of the names I forget, but they were all like good pros as well. There was no kind of spots and stuff, but it's just like poker's so, like, especially tournament poker. It's like it's just so much can change just with the smallest bit of like fortune. It's like, and I'm not a super ethereal spiritual guy, but part of me does believe that like heaters do exist, and like when your confidence, I don't know if it's a tangible thing where you just you're more focused and you're making better decisions when your confidence is up, or if it's a otherworldly thing. But when you're in that like heater period, you just feel invincible. You feel like you can't lose. You know exactly what everyone has. You know exactly what they're gonna do, how they're gonna react, and it's like you feel like Neo out of the Matrix. It's so strange. But you have the reverse of that, where like I before COVID came, I had like a year where I think I made the same amount of final tables, but I got, instead of winning every one of them, I got eighth in every one. So it's just, even though it's essentially the same performance,
Mhm.
you lose the flip at the final table instead of win, so your year's like 10 times worse, even though it's the same thing basically. And at that point, you feel like, oh no, I can't. Like, am I the worst player that's ever played this game? Maybe I could be the stone worst, like, and all these things, even though it's not logical. So it's like kind of weird stuff like that that kind of, I've had a lot of like guys that I would say are really top players, are really super logical. But I mean, I won't name names, but I've one said who believes that he can change the deck run out just by thinking about it, and he's dead f***ing serious. Stuff like that, you know. And that's not stuff that I believe in and stuff, but it is weird to see that how this game affects different people in different ways. You know, it's like, I mean, how I can't prove it's not true. You know, maybe you can. It's not a disprovable concept, I guess. But
I think that one thing that might, I mean, as far as this magic stuff goes, I think what I personally think, I don't know for sure, but it does make a difference. Whether what's your right life EV thing is, but I do think that there is something that at least it might be true that the more that if you play in a way that at least it seems like it's true. If you play in a way that you're giving out, for lack of a better word, positive vibes, and doing it in a way that is positive, I think that that does create more luck than vice versa. Whereas I've noticed if I get super angry and I start getting in this mode of like revenge or whatever, I found that I lose much more often, like much more often than when I don't. Or I've noticed even when I've like broken character as like a character, like I've run bad, but I don't know if that's variance or not. It's just like, but on the other
well,
hand, it's like why do that anyway? You know what I mean? It's like a
yeah,
negative reroll to do this things, especially if there's something going on behind that.
yeah, exactly. But it's
Uh,
like that's the thing. It's like you have all these, especially in the higher ends of poker, these guys that are very, very clearly hyper intelligent in some cases as well. Like you'll probably know more of them than me playing super high stakes cash. That these guys will be insane, and you've got these guys that are like hyper rational stuff like that, and they're like, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm wearing the same socks as yesterday because I fucking ran really good in these socks. You know, it's like absurd. You know, it's
well,
just
it's
like,
like
is the game just beating us down into this, or are we experiencing it on another plane? Like, what's going on?
I just think it's funny either way, even if like it doesn't
Yeah,
mean
I love
anything.
it. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I love it. You know, I love that character stuff like yeah, the the you know, it'd be boring if it wasn't for all that kind of stuff, I think.
Well, yeah, it's like a positive free roll, and it's fun. It's good to make the game more fun, which looks like
Yeah,
you're doing a
yeah,
great job of actually. Like most people are boring as shit to play with, by the way.
yeah, yeah,
It's a massive plus. It's like I'm bored
yeah.
myself as a pro.
Yeah. I actually had a good one when I was in Roswedov after I came back from Australia, and the airline lost my luggage. I didn't have any luggage, so I played the first high roller in dressing gown and slippers.
Hmm.
So it was 25k. I ended up chopping it three ways. Okay, this is great. Then my bag arrives the next day, and I put my normal clothes on. I get set oversetted in the 50k. And I'm like, you know, blah, blah. So for the second 25k, I put the fucking dressing gown and slippers back on to go down and play this, even though my clothes were back. But then I fucking lost anyway, so I don't know if that proves anything or not. But at least I gave it a go. You know, it was like that's what I get. Like when I got set over setted, my first thought was generally, this is what I get for wearing my own clothes. You know, like this is my own mistake. Like I could have
Oh, you
avoided this.
didn't put the slippers on. Is that what happened?
Yeah, no. When my bag arrived, I wore my normal clothes for the next tournament and instantly got set
Oh, you
oversetted.
shouldn't have.
And,
Oh,
and
no,
my hyper logical brain still couldn't escape it. I'm like, fucking idiot! Why
no.
didn't you wear the dressing gown? You know, you're so stupid. You deserve everything you get. You know.
I had something similar happen. I did not. I took off my Trident outfit where I'm Triton and I've got like the trident and the conch shell. When I blew the conch shell, by the way, when I blew the conch shell, I got quad eights against top set very soon after. So you know, and I totally won when I had the conch shell. But in this massive high stakes game for like 400k or something, it was like a 500k pot. Um, 200k buy, no joke. But when I came back to the tournament the next day and I wasn't in my outfit, I just snapped lost. It was like just game over. Like man, the poker gods are mad at me because there's no more show. Like I just ruined the show because I wasn't on time. Um,
Do you still have the conch shell?
No, I need to get a new conch shell, I think, but I
Yeah,
get
for
it.
sure.
It's it's mystic forces, man. Need to work at. But maybe Tridan will resurface from after being defeated by the forces of evil once again. But we'll see. So we've talked a lot about all these goofy antics and poker and doing all this, making mistakes when we're younger or whatever. What's Neil Farrell, the dad, like? I mean, how does having a kid change things? And
Yeah, by far the biggest change of anything. I thought I'd be absolutely awful at it because, like most poker players, I can barely look after myself, let alone another child that's almost wholly dependent on me. But I've been surprised at how, and I also was quite frightened that I wouldn't enjoy it as much as well. Because again, maybe because I don't know, there's a little bit of selfish nature to me. Like my life was always set up in a way that I didn't really have much stress. Every day I just doing something I really enjoyed. It was no self-sacrifice really, and I used to always be like quite arrogant about it. Like why are these people complaining about their lives? Why don't they just make their lives great like mine is? Like that's what I did. And amazing, which is a horrible attitude to have looking back. But now, like honestly, God, it's the old cliche where like you can't understand it until it happens to you, and I never used to believe people that said this. I was like, yeah, like whatever, but it's true. It's the best thing in the world. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but it's by far the most worthwhile. He's just, especially at this age now, he's like just turned 3 now, so it's like he's like a little human being rather than a little dependent blob of like organs and skin. Now he's got his own personality. He's like chipping away, and he's like trying to like the moment for me that felt like real like parenthood was you spend like the first 2 years trying to make them laugh, and then the first time they try and make you laugh, that's when it's like it's a real person now. And it is. It's like all mushy, like sentimental cliches that I didn't believe any of them before I had a kid when no one told me, and I was very skeptical of them, but they're all true. It's like you changes you so much as a person as well. Like I used to be very squeamish about like I didn't want to like like the first nappy I had to like first diaper I had to change. I'm like, "Ugh," and now it's like you're sleeping and he comes up and he just has a piss on your leg and you're like, oh fuck's sake, like it's just normal now. You're like, you don't give a shit about it anymore. Like all this stuff just changes. But it's the best thing in the world, and I don't know, like yeah, I didn't expect it to be. I didn't expect it to be like this because I was very skeptical of people that would say it. But nah, it's incredible. I love it. I've had to sacrifice a bit, which is like my competitive nature is like. So I took a little bit of time off before COVID, and I just basically took the full COVID off. So this is me basically coming back to poker now. Like I did the World Series last year, but this is me as of the start of this year. I'm putting effort in to try and get back to like playing super high rollers and stuff again, and it'll probably take me a while if it happens at all. But because you have to be a lot more sensible and stuff now as well. Like you can't be as aggressive with the old bankroll where if you lose it he can't eat rather than just you. So yeah, but it's worth it 10 times over. Honestly, it's the best thing in the world.
can't say I've experienced it myself, but I'm glad it's worked out for you, and it sounds like you've really.
Scottish fatherhood. It's very. All of our dads are absolutely crazy. That's how it works over here.
And yeah, I've heard also that you'll be planning. Yeah, I remember you. Well, as you just said, you'll be planning to get back into high rolls and all that. So it'll be great seeing you on the felt in the future of 2023. Maybe we'll run into each other.
Yeah, maybe
Uh,
we will.
some mystic stuff going on.
You'll
Um,
have to bring your conch shell, and I'll have a dressing gown on with slippers and shit. We'll try and out magic each other.
all right, sure. We'll have a magic battle of sorts. I've got a flute actually, so I can like play these Scottish tunes. Hopefully by then. Um, what's this Taps-Aff about?
Amazing. Yeah, Taps-Aff is a Scottish tradition where it essentially used to come from whenever the temperature went above like 4 degrees, that's officially we declare summer, and we declare it by immediately taking our tap aff. Your tap is your top, which in Scotland and the UK is a unisex term for your t-shirt or shirt. And but it has then evolved into a method of celebration. And I know I'm assuming you might have got this from Dan, who's a big Taps-Aff aficionado, Mr. Dan Smith, who
I did not know that.
we we discussed it because we have a lot of similar interests. I mean, I actually went to Dan for coaching a few years back, and we got talking, and we had a lot of similar interests, and those similar interests were drinking and taking our shirt off. So, but then he was delighted to hear that it was actually a cultural thing in Scotland. That it's not, I think maybe he felt he found somewhere that he had this natural inclination to take his shirt off when he was drinking, and maybe he's found like his soul country that he was meant to be born in. And ever since then, it was I heard a great story. In fact, I think it was against you actually, where you and Sauce battled, and then I think Sauce maybe got the better of you one time, and Sauce went Taps-Aff in the house. And I like to think I had the small effect, because I think Dan was living with Sauce at the time, and yeah, it's essentially now it's just a kind of mode of celebration. So there's a couple. Whenever I win a tournament now, I always try and get at least one photo where I'm shirtless. It's, to truly exemplify Taps-Aff.
I think I might have to utilize this one for a couple of reasons myself. Yeah, this may be an inspiring thing. It may be able to get into our Magic battle as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have this fantasy where I'm like, where your head's up in the main, and like you run a massive bluff, and as they're thinking about it, you just take your shirt off, and just announce Taps-Aff, like in this most pivotal moment. And if there's any justice in the world, I'll get to enact it one day.
Yeah, well, I hope so too. It'd be tough to do it in the main, but some other tournament, I hope you can do it. Really, I'll retweet it or put it up on Instagram or whatever it is. Anyway, we're out of time now, but I'm looking forward to battling your end to your 2023 success. I wish you good luck.
Thank you, sir. Thanks very much for having me. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, no, it's like if I was Irish or English, it would be Niall, but for some reason, Scotland's just Niall.
Well, if your name is Niall, you can annihilate someone.
That's true. I can also live a life in denial.